Hi, welcome to the Little Garden's home-style text class of A Course in Miracles. Grab your book and read along with us.
Good morning. I just want to say before we get started, Laura, who's staying with us for a month, she's on retreat here at the Little Garden. She went on a hike this morning and got lost. So I've been getting texts from her. She may not be here, but she's with us in spirit. And I just said, enjoy the moment. Just don't stress. Yeah. So we'll miss her, but we are really enjoying having her here with us. This would be a good opportunity for us to say that we have 2 retreatants at a time here at the Little Garden. So if viewers are wondering why sometimes people show up in one room and sometimes another, like Kathy and Connie are sometimes in that room with the other quilt on the side. That's our retreat, one of our retreat rooms. So check out the website if you're interested. It's a very rich experience.
Well, great. So what are we doing this morning?
All right, today we are in chapter 8, and I'm really having a new, fresh appreciation for chapter 8 as a unit. It's just full of great, beautiful, uplifting stuff, not so very much foundational, metaphysical, brain teasers, brain breakers.
Right. It's more of a focus on what's immediately accessible to us and what's valuable.
I think so. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we're in chapter 8, section 2, the difference between imprisonment and freedom. Just the title reminded me of the difference between pain and joy, which was a little while ago.
Yeah, it's very
Confusion
much
of pain and joy.
it's very much connected to that. But since this first sentence is there is a rationale for choice, let's read paragraph 6 in the
I thought
section.
about that too.
Yeah. So what he really wants to introduce to us is how senseless it is to look to the ego for an answer to anything.
Right.
Right. And that the ego's response is anything is possible. Whereas what he wants to emphasize is that the only outcome of the Holy Spirit's learning is joy.
Right.
So in paragraph 6, before this section, it says the total senselessness of such a curriculum must be fully recognized before a real change in direction becomes possible. So he's talking about
the ego's curriculum.
The ego's curriculum. And you cannot learn simultaneously from 2 teachers who are in total disagreement about everything. Their joint curriculum presents an impossible learning task. They are teaching you entirely different things in entirely different ways, which might be possible, except both are teaching you about yourself.
That's really key for this section we're going to study today.
So your reality is unaffected by both, but if you listen to both, your mind will be split about what your reality is. So that's the intro to the criteria for choice.
Okay.
So you want to start?
Well, who would like to start? Do we have a volunteer to read, comment? This section seemed to us to be really rich for applying. How does this look in my life?
Especially since some of it can seem really abstract.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways.
But it's not when you put it in place.
In examples, so
yes.
We'll look for that.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Who would like to read? Just unmute yourself. Go ahead. Okay, I will, said the little red hen. There is a rationale for choice. Only one teacher knows what your reality is. If learning to remove the obstacles to that knowledge is the purpose of the curriculum, you must learn it of him. So I'm going to just pop back to the introduction here because it says the curriculum aims at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. Mm-hmm. So it's just reinforcing what the purpose of the curriculum is. The ego does not know what it is trying to teach. The ego doesn't know anything. It's just an obscuring, confusing, it's like a mix master, just doing this to your brain, your mind. It is an expert. Wait a second. The ego does not know what it is trying to teach. It is trying to teach you what you are without knowing what you are. It is expert only in confusion. It does not understand anything else. As a teacher, then, the ego is totally confused and totally confusing. Even if you could disregard the Holy Spirit entirely, which is impossible, you could still learn nothing from the ego because the ego knows nothing. Well, this part about confusion reminds me of what we've been reading in several sections over the past few weeks, which is that there is this cloud of conflict in our mind, and then there's the clarity of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit's counsel has no confusion in it. It's just peaceful, loving, accepting, joining. Over here, it's like, should I do this? Should I do that? If I do this, we know when we're listening to that voice, it's actually nothing but a muddle.
Right.
And we'll never find truth over there. That's what we've been reading up until now.
So the practical analog of that, to know the distinction between what is the ego saying or the Holy Spirit, because the domain of the curriculum is the same, is the ego solution is always in the future.
Mm-hmm.
The Holy Spirit solution is now, and it's peace.
Yes, and the ego sometimes gets us stuck in the past where you're just stuck. You can't go anywhere. Oh my God, my horrible sins, mea culpa, mea culpa.
So that's solved now.
Right. That's solved right now when we disregard this cloud of confusion and don't listen to the ego.
Mm-hmm.
Just choose peace. Just choose love.
Because we don't really want to be in conflict with the world.
Or with ourselves. But the ego says, keep paying attention to this mix master thing. Keep paying attention to this confusion and you'll find clarity there. The book is telling us, disregard that and go to the Holy Spirit. It's a plain, simple, fulfilling answer over there.
I got my answer to my whole confusion. It's right here.
Talk about it.
Well, you know, for those who just came on, I was saying I'm having a real adjustment to being home again after the retreat. And I'm feeling like, just as in this paragraph, I don't know what to do. I'm confused. I'm having a hard time connecting with spirit, with Holy Spirit. It's like all this to-do thing, you know, my plants have mealy bugs, my internet was cut, you know, it goes on, and it just leaves me feeling just as this paragraph describes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think my plan to go on hourly, set my phone for hourly stops and praying hourly and connecting with Holy Spirit is the solution.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's great.
I always get what I need.
You do.
When I open the book, it's always what I need at that moment. It's just perfect.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
It's pretty good at that.
I wonder if I was jumping ahead in my own mind, but is the first paragraph here really talking about who we are? Oh, I got that from the paragraph previous to it,
Yeah,
that you read at the beginning, that they're both teaching us about who we are.
that's it.
What are you? You know, are you a being in time and space that has to deal with more time and space and things and all of that? Or are you the Holy Son of God, given everything, powerful, nothing but love? Which are you? So that's my comment on it. I'd love to hear what the rest of you have to say.
It occurs to me listening to this that for me, as I was thinking about it, it almost requires a constant forgiving of myself for my belief in separation.
Hey,
You know,
yeah,
just pretty much continuously when
yeah.
this whatever circumstances arrive and I feel myself out of peace. I know I'm beginning to understand it, that, and it's not a big deal. I mean, it doesn't take an hour of meditation and prayer. It's just say,
Right.
hey, I forgive myself.
Right.
And it's so simple just to do that and then ask Holy Spirit to take over and move on. It doesn't have to be a long drawn out thing.
Oh, it's so great. Wow, we're really learning something, aren't we?
I am.
Yeah. Anything else? Anyone else want to say what speaks to you in that first paragraph?
But he's going to expand on the next one, so maybe we should move on.
Okay, so Eric, would you read for us, please? Good to see you this morning.
Very well. Is there any possible reason for choosing a teacher such as this? Does the total disregard of anything it teaches make anything but sense? Is this the teacher to whom a son of God should turn to find himself? The ego has never given you a sensible answer to anything. I love that line. Simply on the grounds of your own experience with its teaching, should you not this alone disqualify it as your future teacher? Yet the ego has done more harm to your learning than this alone. Learning is joyful if it leads you along your natural path and facilitates the development of what you have. When you are taught against your nature, however, you will lose by your learning because your learning will imprison you. Your will is in your nature and therefore cannot go against it. Yeah, I'm struck by the word nature, actually.
Yeah.
Because the ego is teaching you against your nature. What the ego says, though, is that no, what I'm teaching you is your nature. Your nature is to be an ego and to be a separate individual person.
Yeah.
And that's part of its confusion, isn't it? It's about saying, no, it's natural to be like this.
Right.
Everyone's like this.
Yeah.
What's your
That's
problem?
it. Yeah.
And it's disguising the fact that it is absolutely not our nature to be like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And think how many debates there are about what's natural in food, what's natural in medicine. I mean,
Yeah.
what's natural is really contentious in the ego's world.
Yeah, that's true.
And you know, whatever it could be. And the
Yeah.
Holy Spirit saying peace is natural. Your
Yeah.
learning is joyful
Yeah, your nature is that you are the Son of God.
and you're free. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what he wants to get at here. You're
Yeah.
free.
Yeah.
So normally when we talk about nature, we're talking about the countryside and not industrialized, not not polluted, and it's the earth that's in its original form. And it's like, well, that's not really nature, is it? That's not what we're talking about here.
Right.
That's right.
But I like that the ego has never given you a sensible answer to anything. So why would you trust it?
Yeah.
Because you know that every time that you've taken your own advice in the past, it's been wrong. I mean, I'm just thinking for myself that whenever I've tried to invest any money in anything, it's immediately gone completely wrong. I invested money in tech stocks almost immediately before they plummeted. And then I bought property just before the property market dramatically slumped. It's like whatever you try and do based on advice you're getting from world authorities or advice from people, it doesn't work. and actually I'm quite pleased it doesn't, because otherwise you get lulled into an idea that you can do all right for yourself by just following advice that either you work out for yourself or you get from some other supposed person who's got knowledge. Whereas if you've had the experience of realizing that really none of this works, you've basically just got to trust that you'll be guided to whatever is natural, truly natural for you. Nothing else is going to work, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it says at the beginning of the course that its purpose is to help us save time. So we do need to operate in this world, but when we listen to the Holy Spirit's guidance about where to go, what to do, even how to invest, we're going to be saving time. It's when we're listening to our fears, which is the ego, that we mess up. We get more fear. Yeah.
And it's the idea that you've taken a class with a teacher who's been just completely rubbish and not taught you what you needed. So then you enroll on the same class with a different class with the same teacher. Why would you do that?
I'm getting a master's in ego. Oh, right.
So that's really this whole key, what he's saying in that paragraph, that when you're taught against your nature, you will lose by your learning because it will imprison you. And that's the very idea that the world outside me, this person who's ragging on me, this person who I'm interacting with, they're the reason I don't have any peace.
Yeah, right. That's the illusion.
And I'm not free because I'm influenced by this world around me. But our nature is that we're free. We're not bound by the ego's conclusion.
So the freedom is even behind the ego.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm free to choose ego or Holy Spirit. I'm free. It's like, we've got to get out of jail. We got to get out of prison free card here in the course. Are we using it or not? That whole idea of the learning imprisoning us, it makes me focus. This is how my mind interprets. Focus on the dynamic of projection.
Yeah.
First of all, I have some self-hatred because I've left truth, love, God, and I throw it out, and it looks like the world is hating me. It looks like the world is I can't help myself. That's what happened. I had to do that. He made me angry.
Yeah.
They did that to me. All of that is a belief that I'm not who I think I am, but I still have the power to make another choice.
That's right. And in that, he's saying hate, when that hate comes up, the anger, it always needs a target.
Right.
That's why, you projected that onto, it's because of those kinds of people.
Right.
Or it's because of my partner or whatever.
Right.
Very specific when the ego is projecting that out. It's very concrete, but that's gives us a way to see it very clearly. I don't want to be in conflict with you. I want to be at peace with you.
Right.
I want to feel in union with you. I don't want to feel like,
Yeah, right.
you're responsible for my despair.
Exactly.
That's not what I want.
Right. I like this beginning of sentence 7. Learning is joyful if it leads you along your natural path. If we're listening to Holy Spirit, the lessons are joyful. They're not like, some people interpret the line, all things are lessons God would have me learn. Oh, I got that horrible experience. God did that to me to teach me a lesson. God doesn't do that. But we can learn when we make the wrong choice and we get socked in the head, we can learn, oh, I listened to the wrong teacher. But when we do listen to the right teacher, Learning is joyful. There's no pain. God is not giving us pain
That's right.
in our
And
learning.
part of the joy is I am free
Yeah.
of that conflict.
Yeah.
And I'm free right now, not in the future.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had a friend in one of the classes. She's a great course student, and she had just mentioned that, you know, my partner and I had a horrible fight the night before. And kind of what we talked about is this idea of reproducing the past
Mm-hmm.
in the present all the time. And it's one of the thoughts she shared is, instead of relating to him, I was relating to him as if it was a parent telling me something to do that I didn't want to do.
Right.
And we keep projecting those old images on the present,
Right.
but they're not there.
Right. Right. That's the ego's fun game with us.
You know?
Yeah.
But we also mentioned in that lesson, it can be but myself I crucify, that our freedom and our power is the one thing we're denying to ourselves.
Yes.
Because we're afraid of our will.
We're afraid of our will. That's going to be coming up.
We think our will really did separate us from God. And so we deny our freedom. We deny our strength.
Right. So sentence 8 says, when you are taught against your nature, in other words, when you believe in ego, you will lose by your learning. Whatever ego teaches us, we're going to lose. It's going to cause us to lose because our learning will imprison us. So the ego is constantly telling us that the outside world is causing us pain. It's your fault, it's their fault, it's the economy's fault. And I'm the victim. That's the imprisonment that the ego is leading us to.
Yeah. And that's why we're doing this course 30 years later, because we realize I could free myself right now.
Yeah.
And that's joyful.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved what Dale said at the beginning.
Yeah.
Just constantly. I mean, that's the job we have here on earth, is to do that constantly. It's almost like coming out of the water to the surface where we can breathe. And we know that there's another world, the one with air in it. But we're constantly going back into the water and having to lift up and breathe. And that's forgiveness. That's my little metaphor for forgiveness. It's like, as long as we're here, we're going to be doing that forgiveness work, lifting out of the false into the true, making another choice. That's our job.
Yeah.
It says we're not here to be in the air all the time. Maybe happens for short periods of time that we get completely out of the water. But most of the time, it's the forgiveness, it's the work. And it's not difficult once we say, oh, that's my job, then it's fun.
And that was the one thing he said, is in that all things are lessons God would have me learn, that our only function is forgive. We don't see our troubles as being connected to unforgiveness.
Yeah.
We just don't make that connection.
Well, he's helping us to do it now.
Yeah.
So let's have Leanne, could you read 3 for us, please? And give us all your thoughts.
The ego cannot teach you anything as long as your will is free, because you will not listen to it. It is not your will to be imprisoned because your will is free. This is why the ego is the denial of free will. It is never God who coerces you because he shares his will with you. His voice teaches only in accordance with his will, but that is not the Holy Spirit's lesson, because that is what you are. The lesson is that your will and God's cannot be out of accord because they are one. This is the undoing of everything the ego tries to teach. It is not then only the direction of the curriculum that must be unconflicted, but also the content. Well, as long as you remember your oneness with God, you're in alignment.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're letting the ego be in control of you.
Right.
And that The lesson is that your will and God's cannot be out of accord because they are one.
That's
That's
right.
Yeah, that's only a true statement if you're actually in alignment with God, though. You know, they can't be out of accord, but if you're in your ego state, they are.
It
They're-
looks like they are.
Yeah, it looks
yeah.
like you're out of alignment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go back to what, Dale said, it's a constant, constant prayer,
Yeah.
especially when you're in the depths of something very personal, very physical in nature. You know, we live in a world that is pretty messed up right now.
A lot of pain.
A lot of pain. And, I'm in a personal conflict that I will be leaving my healthcare job.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of, questions and pains and concerns that go along with that. But I have to remember, and I'm trying to help other people go through this as well and stay out of the ego state. But I have to admit, some days it's very, very, very challenging to to find the difference between ego, reality, and God.
Mhm.
To function in the world that we live in, to show up every day, to be a good person, stand your ground, stand in love, to find that balance of what that looks like. And then also not only for myself, but help others walk that path as well.
Mhm.
And because, we're being forced to do something we don't want to do. And that's a physical force. And so I'm trying my best to incorporate the course in this process. And some days it's quite challenging.
I'd just like to suggest that you look at chapter 4, section 4. This need not be, and it asks us to look at, how do I feel?
Yes,
That's
Right. But I don't feel good about what's happening.
mhm.
And it's out of my control. That part of it is how I feel.
How you feel is your choice.
Is my choice, but sometimes it doesn't feel like my choice because something's being shoved upon you. Like a physical thing it's like, like if you were backed up against a wall, pinned in by a car.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
very physical, and you're going to feel the pain.
Right. Yeah.
But you still, I guess, and that's kind of what it feels like. But
Yeah. I had
a good practice session.
what I'd like to do is take those two sentences there
which
he-
two?
where he's clarifying what the lesson of the Holy Spirit is. So, it says he shares his voice teaches only accordance with his will, but that is not the Holy Spirit's lesson, because that is what you are.
You are his
Right.
will.
So tie that back to what Jan referenced in the introduction. In the introduction, it's saying, we're not teaching you the meaning of love because that can't be taught. So who we are is not what's teaching us. That's
Right.
not what the lesson is,
Right.
because who we are is what we are. That's never changed. The lesson is who we are doesn't have a will that opposes God.
Right.
So it's just the same as in the introduction. We're not teaching you what love is.
Yeah.
We're teaching you what are the obstacles
Uh-huh.
to that love. And so he's teaching us that we don't have a will that contradicts. He's not teaching us what we are, because that can't be taught.
We just uncover that by removing the obstacles with the Holy Spirit.
Right, but the whole ego's world is, I can teach you what knowledge is. I can teach you what reality is, but that's not what the teaching is.
Okay.
That's a really important point to get here, because what you are, the whole separation myth is, I've changed what I am.
Uh-huh. And I'm a victim.
And then my proof that I've changed who I really am is that I have a will now that opposes God.
Right.
And so that's the one that he's undoing.
Okay. That's the rest of this section, isn't it?
And
About
he-
our will.
Right. And he's appealing to that, not from the metaphysics of truth and reality. He's appealing to our sense, I want to be free and I want to be in joy.
I want to be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where the I don't have a will that contradicts God, and I am free, and his lessons will be joyful.
Yeah. Many times in the course, it refers to our will when we think with the ego as a wish. It's just a wish. It has no power. It cannot make us happy. It's just a lot of confusion and conflict. That's the ego's will. So,
You know, as I look what's going on, my challenge is if I'm at peace, but I'm dealing with somebody that clearly isn't,
yeah.
and is clearly deep in their ego,
Mm-hmm.
of taking a stand for something that you believe to be true and correct, but yet staying in peace. Because inherent in taking a stand is at least the idea of conflict, particularly when the other side is introducing enormous conflict that's going to impact people's lives in many, many different ways. But I'm the one that's supposed to stay in peace, and I know that I am.
Right.
But it is truly a challenge. And the
Yeah.
only thing I can come up with, and I haven't got it done yet, is to find a way to stay in peace by extending love and seeing what that person that is totally in the ego is. They don't understand what they are.
Yes.
They have no idea what they are,
Yeah.
but still take a stand for what we know is correct. And there's a whole, it's just not us. We see it all around us. That's inherent in our world today. And one of the biggest things I've learned since our time together is what I just talked about, and immediately turn it over to Holy Spirit. Because one thing I've determined that I'm just not capable of figuring this out.
Yeah, right.
I use my best thinking process, but that's just not enough sometimes. So turn it to
No,
Holy
right.
Spirit
That's it.
and trust Holy Spirit will take care of it.
Yeah.
Right.
That's one of the things we always talk about is this idea in the mind that seems to be a huge obstacle. Will I be enough? Will I have enough to meet this situation? Will I be enough in my own? And that causes despair in us. But that's the one thing the Holy Spirit wants, is our acknowledgement.
Yes.
The essence of a miracle is, I don't understand. There's more going on and I need to learn, but I can't learn it alone.
That's it.
I have to learn it in these relationships.
And with the Holy Spirit.
Right. And so it's good to remember, especially in this early reading, that we're still building on chapter 6, the 3 lessons that are in there. But the big thing in chapter 6 also was Jesus saying, I set an extreme example for you. I was tortured, I was beaten, I was murdered, and I did not lose my sense of self in that. So I set this example that no matter what's going on in your world, you can choose peace. You do not have to be a victim.
Yeah.
And he set that example as what? Not only as divine, but as a human being. He did that.
Right.
And we can too.
Dale, would you like to tackle paragraph 4?
Yeah, sure. The ego tries to teach that you want to oppose God's will. No, that's just obviously a correct statement. This unnatural lesson cannot be learned, and the attempt to learn it is a violation of your own freedom, making you afraid of your will because it is free. Well, I think that's restating what we just talked about.
Yeah.
You know, we always have a choice on how we see things. I know in my case, it's been a process of training my mind to recognize what's going on in that moment and to recognize how I feel. I don't have to go there unless I choose to. But, you know, the truth is, sometimes it's easier to go there. At least temporarily, until I feel miserable again. So why do it? Which has been I know what's right. I just can't do it sometimes, depending on the intensity of the situation. But I will say that I am aware that I need to stop doing that. So I guess that's progress.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. The Holy Spirit opposes any imprisoning of the will of a son of God, knowing that the will of the Son is the Father's. Well, again, the Holy Spirit. And another thing I've learned is I need to quit trying to do this all myself. It's becoming real clear to me the role of Holy Spirit in this. I have a situation, I haven't talked about it. I guess I feel comfortable enough about this group that I will. For my entire life, I've had night terrors. I mean, horrible, horrible night terrors. And it's just really demon looking things with claws, and it's terrifying. Since this has started, in the last few months, before I go to sleep, I ask Holy Spirit to intervene. And my prayer is something like this: I am not there yet enough. I'm not have my mind stayed in God enough that I can do this while I'm sleeping. I ask you to do this for me.
Wonderful.
And my night terrors of a lifetime have pretty much disappeared.
Wow.
Just gone. Now, I have once in a while, it's a little bit, but for the most part, they're gone.
Yeah.
And the only thing that's different is that I've asked Holy Spirit to intervene and do it for me. And that's a hard one, because we're raised in a culture, at least I was raised, that you're responsible for everything you do. You're the only one that can solve it. And don't blame anybody else if your life is a mess. You did it by the decisions you make. So to trust Holy Spirit to release that to something we can't see has been a real problem for him. But all I can tell you is it works. So I'm learning to trust that I don't need to do all this by myself. Just
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Let's see. The Holy Spirit leads you steadily along the path of freedom, teaching you how to disregard or look beyond everything that would hold you back. Well, that's very beautifully stated what I just bumbled through. So yeah, the Holy Spirit to me, and this has been a real revelation the last few months, as this has all began to sink in. If we would all, and it doesn't, the other thing is, this doesn't have to be hard.
Right.
Why do I make it so hard? You know,
We all do.
I know, but why are we doing this? All we have to do is say, God, I forgive myself for my sense of separation. Holy Spirit, here, take this and handle it. And go.
You know, what's good to remember is that there's no explaining insanity. By definition, insanity is without reason.
Yeah.
So that's where the ego is getting us to analyze it. But insanity has no reason.
Right.
And all we can do is what he said, is just turn away from it and give it to the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and when
Just
we
because-
do that, we're teaching ourselves in that moment we are free, because we've freely given it to the Holy Spirit. And then that's the beginning of the lesson. You're free and you're in joy.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Kathy?
Just because you're crazy doesn't make you any less crazy.
Kathy, would you like to read the next paragraph?
Sure, that's fine. We have said that the Holy Spirit teaches you the difference between pain and joy. That is the same thing as saying he teaches you the difference between imprisonment and freedom. You cannot make this distinction without him, because you have taught yourself that imprisonment is freedom. Believing them to be the same, how can you tell them apart? Can you ask the part of your mind that has taught you to believe they are the same to teach you how they are different? Good point. Yeah, it's like the thinking that got you in this problem. The same kind of thinking will not solve the problem. You have to,
Yeah.
the Holy Spirit. Boy, the paragraph before it said the Holy Spirit opposes any imprisonment of the will of the Son of God. And as far as I remember, that is the strongest word he uses. An action verb kind of thing, you know, it's like he opposes, I don't know. It just
Yeah.
usually love does not protest or does not, resist or any of that kind of stuff. And anyway, I don't know. I'm a little confused about, that stuff, but.
No, you're right, but it's part of what we've talked about of not fighting yourself.
Yeah.
You know, that,
Okay.
So when Jan and I did this sentence 3, you cannot make this distinction without him, that we need the Holy Spirit to know the difference between joy and pain, between freedom and bondage. We need him because you've taught yourself that imprisonment is freedom. So an exercise Jan and I did this morning when we went through that is what would be a concrete, practical example of how we taught ourselves that freedom is imprisonment.
Well, I can tell you from training I've received, on jobs, that if you just buckle down and struggle, you will get the money that'll make you free. I'm serious. They talk that way. Just work, and then you will have freedom because you'll have money. There's one.
And it's in the future.
Yeah, money doesn't make you free. I mean, and the struggle is just imprisonment. It's like, oh gosh, I'd really like to hang out with my grandkids. Oh, no, I have to work. I have to. Why do I have to? Because I say that I have to.
Right.
Nobody else. Holy Spirit didn't say that. He's not doing that kind of thing. A lot of relationships are like that.
Right.
If I just, toe the line here, then what kind of freedom could come from that? I won't be lonely. Yeah, I don't know.
My example was how I'm teaching myself imprisonment is freedom is just what we talked about. The ego does promise a temporary relief by you blaming them for what's going on with you.
Right.
And that seems to, in a moment, it seems like we're free of the guilt because now I've given it
That's
to you.
that's a real basic one.
That's a real basic
Yeah.
one, but I haven't gotten rid of the guilt.
Right.
It's just this temporary sort of relief by blaming the political system or the social system or my partner or whatever. I think that's freedom. I'm going to blame them people.
So I'm thinking about a lesson late in the workbook that describes how when we imprison somebody else with our demands that they be different, we're the jailer and we're as much in prison as they are.
Yeah.
So as whenever I'm projecting, I'm in pain.
Right.
I'm in prison.
That's it.
And that's how I know I'm in prison, because I'm in pain.
And that's the one thing the ego doesn't want us to see, that
Right.
we're projecting it out. We're
Right.
projecting it out. And
Right.
it seems to be freedom
Right,
until we realize it's not.
right.
Can you think of any examples of how freedom seemed to be imprisonment or imprisonment and freedom? We didn't know the difference between them.
I was just thinking about, how we try to have fun on our spare time. Some of the things that we get into, it's supposed to be joyful and it just ends up hurting us, like watching the news for relaxation, or, there's a few other ones. It's just.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else about that paragraph? From anyone?
I think like food or anything else, it's like I'm free to choose whatever food I want.
Yeah.
That's freedom to me,
Yeah,
which is, my freedom and will is very different than that.
yeah, oh yeah. We talk about this from time to time, the Dunkin' Donuts illusion. So, it's like there's 100 varieties there.
Yeah.
And ego says your choice is all about which one you'll choose. Whereas Holy Spirit says that's one set. That's the confusion set. Real freedom is, do I want love or do I want food, comfort food to make myself feel better? It's like, do I want love directly? Or do I want to make a lot of choices over here? Those choices are not the real decision. The real decision is between love and confusion.
Right. And, so I'm free to eat whatever I want. And then all of a sudden I'm 300 pounds and I'm imprisoned by my body.
Yeah. It comes up in a lot of different ways, doesn't it? Yeah. So that sentence 5, can you ask the part of your mind that taught you to believe that imprisonment and freedom are the same, ego, to teach you how they're different? In other words, like what Connie was saying she's going to do is to stop every hour with this whole sense of confusion about what to do, how to regard situations in her life. She's going to stop every hour and just commune with Holy Spirit. That's what this book is teaching us to do. And it's starting right here, saying, don't even go to that mess to look for your answers. Go to the Holy Spirit. Go to the quiet answer. Find peace, period. The answers will come out of that, but don't struggle about the answers. Just go to your true nature. Go to the Holy Spirit.
So I want to read right at the beginning of the workbook how he's teaching us along these lines. And it's in these lesson 4, these thoughts do not mean anything. He said, this is a major exercise and we'll repeat it from time to time in somewhat different form. The aim here is to train you in the first steps towards the goal of separating the meaningless from the meaningful. It's the first attempt in the long-range purpose of learning to see the meaningless as outside you and the meaningful within you. It's the beginning of training your mind to recognize what is the same and what is different.
Mhm.
And that's the whole key. We think pain is joy. We think I'm gonna bind myself to you, and somehow that's going to give me freedom.
Yeah.
So right at the beginning, he's talking about our mind training between meaningless and meaningful. What's inside, what's outside, what's
Okay.
the same and what's different. That's the whole mind training. Right there.
And we have to do that with the Holy Spirit, not with the ego.
Right.
Okay. Oh, let's see now. Connie, could you read 6 for us, please?
Sure. The Holy Spirit's teaching takes only one direction and has only one goal. His direction is freedom and his goal is God. Yet he cannot conceive of God without you because it is not God's will to be without you. When you have learned that your will is God's, you could no more will to be without him than he could will to be without you. That sentence really, it's really powerful. It's, yeah, like I think I've been struggling with that, and I really have been feeling that lately, that my will is really God's will. I have no will other than God's will.
Yeah.
This is freedom and this is joy. Yeah, that's how it felt. Deny yourself this and you are denying God his kingdom because he created you for this. Yeah, I think that's what I've been feeling. Like I've been with that, you know, I've been with my will is basically God's will for a month. And I feel like I've been dropped into this alternative reality here, which is my life and home. And I don't like it. So I'm like, I guess my challenge is to live my life here, knowing what I know about my will and God's will. And yeah.
Yeah, and then you'll be led as easily as being carried down a quiet path in summer. You know, the decisions that
Right.
are to be made on the level of which donut to choose. Those things can be done with the Holy Spirit, but the whole point is to recognize, I want what Holy Spirit wants. And it's happiness, you know,
Right.
it's our power, it's our freedom. And you can have it anywhere. It's not about the place.
Right, exactly. And what I'm seeing too is that I have not had conflicts with other people or other things, like all the broken cable in the refrigerator and people doing things hasn't bothered me. My conflict is all internal
Well,
Right.
with myself.
Great. That's
Yeah,
quite an insight.
that's what Ramakrishna said, the Indian saint. He said the purpose of pilgrimage, which is what a retreat is so you learn that it's within you.
Right.
Because you do, if you go, it's like we take Sabbath days. And what we're doing in that is learning our inner life. We're
Mhm.
setting aside the outside and we're learning this is all within me,
Right.
right? And that is joyful.
Right.
It is freedom. When I'm blaming somebody else, I mean, recently I had a conflict come up in a relationship, and it's the same conflict that's been going on for years. And it just kind of, like he said, you think because the guns are still, the battle's over, but it's still there, and it
Right.
keeps coming up and it
Right.
keeps coming up. But thank God it does in very concrete situations.
So we can make another choice.
So we can make another choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else want to share about paragraph 6? Anything that stood out for you?
That last sentence, deny yourself this and you're denying God his kingdom because he created you for this. Reminds me of the end of the last chapter, actually. It says, you who could give the love of God to everything you see and touch and remember are literally denying heaven to yourself.
That's exactly the reference in 7.
That's what he's reading.
Yeah, a state of grace.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
Well, let's not deny ourselves heaven any longer.
Mm.
You know, I might add, and I don't know whether the word to choose other than regret. I don't, that's not and sometimes language doesn't allow you to convey what you really want to
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
of how close Holy Spirit has been here this whole time,
Yeah.
which is really what we're talking about, is learning to recognize that. And it's so accessible and it's there always. And I've spent my lifetime fighting with the ego when I guess Holy Spirit was sitting there just going, come on, man. When you going to wake up? But it is so close and so simple to access. And I've spent my entire lifetime fighting it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of seemed to me that it kind of fitted into that paragraph.
You know what I love about this teaching in this area of the course is it's repeatedly telling us that the ego is nothing, that we don't have to fight it. We can just ignore it. We
Yeah.
can just make another choice to listen to the voice for love.
That's the part that's abstract to me, because the idea that we're making up the world and all of that, that's pretty much been in metaphysics, this idea that everything's an idea and all of that. So we really recognize that I'm putting a filter on
Yeah.
what I'm seeing, and then my world is coming from that filter. What I find difficult about the course is it's saying fear and guilt is not in your mind anymore.
Yeah,
The Holy Spirit
that's beyond
removed
my
the fear
understanding.
and
at this
remove the
point.
guilt. Yeah, but practically that's why the Holy Instant works.
Yeah,
Because
right.
if guilt and fear have already been removed from my mind, I can experience that right now
That's right.
if I don't look to the ego's future solution.
That's right.
Right
Yeah.
now.
It's like looking past the clouds to the sky.
I can't tell you how many times it's just like, thank you, it's not them.
It's me.
It's me. I'm happily wrong about who I am.
So do you want to read paragraph 7?
Okay. Are we done with that one? The other one? 7, when I said all power and glory are yours because the kingdom is his, this is what I meant. The will of God is without limit, and all power and glory lie within it. It is boundless in strength and in love and in peace. It has no boundaries because its extension is unlimited, and it encompasses all things because it created all things. By creating all things, it made them part of itself. You are the will of God because that is how you were created. Because your creator creates only like himself, you are like him. You are part of him who is all power and glory, and are therefore as unlimited as he is. Well, the practical idea that I can get behind that, because it's saying this applies to all creation, but the most practical way I can relate to that is that there is no circumstance in which I can't apply the Holy Spirit's peace and joy and absence of conflict. There is no situation. This applies to all of my life now. To any situation that I'm in, I can apply this. Right?
Yeah.
There is no exceptions in my life now to experiencing God's will, his peace, his freedom, his joy, because now I've chosen that.
But you do have to admit that the temptations come up to see.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, response to temptation in the course is one huge area of practice.
Yeah.
Like morning and evening, longer, frequent reminders, stopping hourly, but response to temptation is a big level of practice, because when you're angry and you're tempted to get into that anger or sadness, your mind is very, very concentrated at that moment. It's very concentrated on that emotion, and you can take that concentration and put it to the Holy Spirit's voice.
Right.
Instead of the fear.
Using the lesson or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Any other comments on that paragraph?
Well, it just occurred to me, this applies to all my brothers and sisters as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Everything we've been reading, yeah.
That idea of the will of God being without limit, having all power and glory within it, being boundless in strength and in love and in peace. Its extension is unlimited. The image that comes to me, and it's a common one in understanding God in the Course, is that God is like the sun, S-U-N, sun, and we're like the light that comes from the sun. There's no limit. There's no place where there is darkness.
Yeah.
The only place there could be darkness is ignorance or denial or turning away from the light source.
Right.
That's what we do with ego.
Right. So we think we took that power that was given to us to be free. We think we took that to oppose God.
Yeah.
So now we think his power has made us be separate. But the example, the imagery they would use in non-dualism is to think like of a flame, right? And the flame gives light and it gives heat, but there's no process by which you can separate the warmth from the flame itself. A being in its power cannot be separated. And that's what the whole idea of separation is. I've taken this power and I've used it to separate me from love.
And so we feel guilty, and guilt in the Course is basically lack.
Right.
I'm not good enough.
Right.
So we take that and we put it out onto the world. It's not good enough.
Right.
You're not good enough. She's not good enough. He's not good enough. It's not good enough. And I'm imprisoned by that.
That's the whole
That's
key.
the whole ego story.
I'm imprisoned by the world,
Uh-huh.
not by my will. It's not being done by me. It's being done to me.
Yeah. I have recently totally fallen in love with Earl Purdy's teaching, P-U-R-D-Y, if you go online. And he starts out most of his classes with this little song, I'm not the victim of the world I see. And it's just so cool. It's just so cool to sing that song.
He
That's
does
what-
call and response from like gospel, right?
Well, not exactly.
Oh.
Okay, so who would like to finish up? No volunteers?
Why
Then
don't
I
you
will
read?
do it myself. To what else, except all power and glory, can the Holy Spirit appeal to restore God's kingdom? His appeal then is merely to what the kingdom is, and for its own acknowledgement of what it is. Well, he's just told us that we are part of the kingdom. His appeal is merely to what the kingdom is and for our own acknowledgement of what we are. When you acknowledge this, you bring the acknowledgement automatically to everyone because you have acknowledged everyone. This is the atonement. This is acknowledging that everyone, no matter how I'm judging them, that person is the will of God. And it happens automatically, it says, the extension of that. Because if I say that I am the will of God, I have to recognize you are.
Right, so the difference is, like the Course is always saying, private thoughts, you're coming from your private thoughts, and others are coming from their private thoughts. And by definition, you can't share those thoughts,
Right.
but you can share the thought of salvation and forgiveness, because that's not contingent on your journey through time and space.
Right.
That's the constant lesson. You're free and you're joyful and
Yeah.
you're at peace.
So this idea that the acknowledgement automatically extends to everyone, we see it a lot in the workbook, where it says things like, when you do your practice, thousands of people around the world are blessed by it. Well, that's not happening on a level that ego understands at all, because ego still believes we're in bodies.
So would this be an example of that? If I'm in conflict with somebody and I say, okay, I'm just coming from the ego, I feel like I'm in prison, I'm sad, I'm upset, I feel like I'm in loss, that if I do at that moment accept salvation or forgiveness, accept that I am free, then what he's saying is that I will find automatically some way to share that with that other person, because it's really about the Holy Spirit.
Right.
And it's the Holy Spirit in me giving to the Holy Spirit
Yes.
to them.
Yes.
And that's why it's always, love is always working.
Because there's one will, there's one self.
Yeah.
Yep. By your recognition, when we recognize who we are, you awaken theirs, and through theirs, yours is extended. Awakening runs easily and gladly through the kingdom in answer to the call for God. This is the natural response of every son of God to the voice for his creator, because it is the voice for his creations and for his own extension. That idea of awakening runs easily and gladly through the kingdom makes me think of like a wildfire. Do you ever see it like a grass fire? It's like spark is lit, it goes flying through the grass. That's how it happens. We just light the spark by accepting it here.
And remember, to go back to section 8 in the chapter just before this, the unbelievable belief, which is that I can be without love.
Yeah.
I can be without
Alone.
God. That's the alone. That's the unbelievable belief. But he starts it out with said that without projection, there can be no anger, but it's also true that without extension, there can be no love.
Yeah.
So
good
is
point.
my peace coming from my personal idea about what peace is, or is my peace coming from this atonement that I can share with others?
Right. It very good, because the last part of this paragraph really says that nothing really happens until I share it with someone else.
That's it. I become, so that's the way he's saying you've consciously blocked this love inside you, and then you've forgotten that you've blocked this love. So how does the Holy Spirit deal with you that you blocked it and then you forgot you did it? The Holy Spirit gets you to do things that you couldn't do if you were an ego in a body. Because if you're an ego in body, why would you forgive yourself?
Right.
Right?
Or anyone else.
Right. So it
Yeah.
gets you to do things that shows you, oh, I am as God created me. I am free. I can free myself. And as we
others.
see those experiences and we develop those abilities, then we infer, well, maybe I am as God created.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not a body.
Yeah.
Gets us
Maybe
to-
I have all power and glory.
Right. So from that's the big turnaround. From the ego, it says, first I've got to understand something and then I can use it. And the Course is saying, use it,
Right.
forgiveness, and then you'll understand it.
Yeah.
That's why application is so important of this. That's why practicality with it is so important. We need to teach ourselves the obvious,
Yeah. Right.
that we are who we are.
Right. Last thoughts?
I have a quick question. Does anybody else in here get really angry at yourself for when you realize that the ego is running your life?
Yeah, I have a little story. This is because Laura's lost on a trail. It reminds me of when I was lost on a trail not long ago. And I was supposed to get back for class. So same kind of story. And at one point I realized that yes, the direction I'm going in will eventually get me back to my car. But if I just turn around, I'll get there faster. And the resistance to admitting, like, but I've invested in this way. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I'm not too bright. I've invested all this time going along this trail in this direction, and I'll just keep on doing it more because that's where my investment is. And I'll get there. Yeah, but you get there a lot quicker by just admitting you're wrong and turning around.
Exactly. I mean, I can admit pretty quick that I'm wrong. It's just frustrating that I'm like, why do I mean, I don't want to be an ego, but it just seems just to happen.
Well, this is part of life on earth. You
Yeah.
know, this is what we're doing here. We're digging out of the hole. We
But
have a
then
friend.
Go
What?
ahead. Go ahead.
We have a friend whose daughter was stuck in an avalanche or some kind of horrible thing in Alaska with more snow coming down. And there was 3 of them trapped in this little space, and the snow was getting heavier and the space was getting smaller. And they're spending all their time digging just to keep from being crushed by the snow. Kind of what we're doing here. You know, we're in the snow. We're not out of it yet. That's our job. But we do have help, and it's not desperate and it's not horrible,
Yeah.
as long as we're not afraid.
And they had to keep digging because the weather was still not favorable for the helicopter
Right.
that was going to come and save them. So they had to take turns sleeping and digging. And
Yeah,
we just have to do that work.
that's.
I mean,
we sleep and we dig. But I think Dale has a clue. We can even get the Holy Spirit on our side working for us when we're sleeping.
There you
You
go.
know,
And the Course does ask us to do that.
Yeah, another thought for somebody to think about. In my lifetime, I've learned there's a couple of ways to achieve some goal. You can spend years and years and years studying and never really execute,
Yeah.
or you can go to the end of what the stated objective is, even if you don't understand it,
Yeah.
and do it that way. So why not go to the end and forgive yourself at every moment for your separation and ask Holy Spirit to go to work and approach from that standpoint.
Lovely.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Because the ego is always going, don't confuse me with the facts. Okay?
Yeah.
Well, I love you all very much and appreciate our time here. And let's just send Laura some peace. I hope she's enjoying her being lost on the trail.
You may have to rescue her. Let's
I
stop.
might try to do that. Okay.
Do you want to stop the recording?
Okay. See you soon.